Yeah, Daniel's in Nashville. I'm in Bozeman, Montana now. We just
Oh,
moved from
nice.
Nashville like last week. So this is a change. I like the mountains though. All right, we started recording. Welcome back to the Behind the Food podcast, guys. Today we've got Jesse here with us from WHIMS. Jesse's based out of Austin. They have a killer brand that he co-founded with his wife. I am super excited to hear about it because I went on the website, looked at it, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I haven't tried this before. And also it looks incredible. So Jesse, you want to tell the audience about what you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to jam with you today. So we started WHIMS. We've been in market for 2.5 years. It really was born out of a health journey that my wife and I began separately but together. She was diagnosed with an autoimmune. And so rather than go down the road of medical intervention, we took on lifestyle. We cut out sugar, dairy, gluten, and, didn't know anything about things like categories back then. But just as consumers, we were looking for products that we could integrate into our new lifestyle, and found that the kind of products we like to eat, which are normally found in the Halloween bag, the ones on the shelf that were sort of better for you in their positioning still were full of sugar. And so they were just inaccessible to us. And at the time we're Canadians, we lived in Vancouver, and we were really inspired watching Smart Sweets grow and how they took on reinventing gummies in a low sugar format. And we thought, can we take on classic American confectionery and redo that with the same lens?
Very interesting. So I also saw one of the things that kind of caught my attention right off the gate is that you're free from sugar alcohols.
Yes.
Which in the space you're working in isn't very typical. Usually when a brand goes low sugar, kind of the go-to to make up the difference is sugar alcohols, maltitol, erythritol, etc. Right? What drove you in the direction of we don't want to use sugar alcohols as the solution to our low sugar approach to sweets and confectionery?
There's a couple of things that went into that. One is my wife is super sensitive to sugar alcohols. They are a diuretic, and they can upset your stomach. And so they did. Sugar alcohols really had a moment around the Atkins movement.
Yes.
They were really big in the early days of low sugar. And so what was important to us was that we could incorporate one of the, and then that led us to the world of all of sort of the new world of sugar replacement. And I wish I could say that we landed on it through some strategy, but we looked at the back of the Smart Sweets pack and said to ourselves, what's their sugar replacement formulation? In Canada, they can't use monk fruit. For some reason, monk fruit is approved as a tabletop sweetener, but not as a food ingredient. And so the Canadian formulation of Smart Sweets has stevia, which we found, my wife is also a super taster, so she's very sensitive to any of the alternative sweeteners. And so we found that, monk fruit just performed, but, monk fruit has its own sort of nuances and is challenging to work with. And luckily, our head of product is a super talented pastry chef by training who worked in food manufacturing, and so was able to work within the confines of what you can and can't do with monk fruit.
This is kind of something Jimmy and I preach all the time, which is chef first, right? Not lab first. And I feel like that having that pastry chef in your corner really is a huge get. I always try to go back to people that work in CPG and go back to, like, and Jimmy does this too, like, the taste and the product come first, right? Not the label. And the fact that you had someone in your corner that was, an expert in not just the sweetener side, but also in the actual product side of making sure that, tasted good is huge. So did you end up landing on a blend of the two, or did you change monk fruit or stevia based by product? What was the fit that ultimately worked for you there?
We actually, our first formulation, we used allulose.
Interesting.
And quickly discovered that while it's not on Whole Foods banned item list, Whole Foods does not carry products that have allulose in it. And so Whole Foods as the market leader in the natural food grocery chain, for us was important that we met their standard and followed their lead. And so we changed I think our first production had allulose, and we quickly pivoted and incorporated monk fruit.
So is monk fruit the
So-
main sweetener now for the most part?
Yeah.
I have a question. So like that's the formulation, that's where it came from. And you mentioned like you guys have a cool head of product, which is awesome. But when you were getting started and you first like picked up that like bag of like your competitors' products, and you said like, hey, we're gonna like go and do something similar. You feel like they're not doing exactly what we want. Like obviously you guys went out and did it. Like what were the first steps that you took to like going from like idea to like the test product? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, so we were messing around. I mean, my wife and I do not have a culinary background, and so we were messing around with some formulations on our own, and had developed this initial sort of concept product that was so healthy and tasted terrible. And one day went to go pick up our daughter from school, and it turned out there was this like picnic after school. It was early in the year. All the parents were hanging out, and my wife said, "Go get those peanut butter cups. Let's hand them out to the parents and get some feedback." And we did, and we're in Canada, so everybody's very polite. And we handed it to one of our friends, and she's like, "Wait here," and disappeared into the crowd, pulled this woman out, put her in front of us, and said, "Give her one." And so I nervously handed over a peanut butter cup to this woman, and she tasted it and sort of smacked her lips together, looking off into the sky for like what seemed like 10 minutes, and delivered a 10-minute dissertation on what was wrong with the product. And I'm like, who are you? How do you know that? And turns out we met Leslie, our head of product, in the park. I met her for coffee the next day and begged her to help us, and she agreed. And at the time was running a cookie business out of a commissary kitchen. And so our first step was to work on some benchtop formulation in her shop while doing a co-packer search. And it happened that in Vancouver there was a guy who made peanut butter cups. He had a small line, and we knew, this is a conversation I have with founders earlier on in the journey all the time, is, engaging with that co-packer really early.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime we've started with a co-packer or moved co-packers, there's some changes to your formulation that need to happen in order to work within the equipment in their environment. And so we were simultaneously developing our product while meeting with the co-packer and understanding, it set a clear path to us in terms of where we needed to get the product. We had these standards from a nutrition perspective, from a taste perspective, but then we incorporated the performance perspective. How does our formulation perform on the equipment? And so for us, it was really doing those three things simultaneously and just getting clear on those three paths and ultimately blending them together.
That's absolutely wild. And also the serendipity to like have like random like pastry chef show up, tell you like all of that. And then also the fact that you mentioned like there was a co-man like in your hometown that was making peanut butter cups, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
So how did the first product run go? Like once you engaged all of them and you guys like had the formula like ready, like what was the first product run like? And then like, did you guys have a plan on where you were going to sell it? Or was it kind of just like, hey, we've never done this before, we'll give it a shot?
Yeah, I'd love to say that we had this whole strategy baked and ready to go. I often think about this in every element of our business. You ultimately have to step into the abyss and the path starts to appear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been like that. It's kind of a dance between making it happen and letting it happen. And so for us, it was trying to figure out all the pieces simultaneously. So it was like, okay, now we needed packaging, needed to figure that out, found a packaging manufacturer. while working on the formulation, while discussing, moving into manufacturing, not really thinking about anything around a go-to-market strategy, just, sort of having this belief that we would figure that out when the time was right. And so, we knew rather than launch in Canada, become a Canadian brand that then goes down to the US, we wanted to go down to the US and launch here. So we ultimately moved to California. And so, we moved to California slightly ahead of our first production run. I think we moved in December. Our first production was April. This was 2022, probably. Maybe it was later in the year. And so I remember our first shipment of product was 2 pallets. We shipped it into our air-conditioned garage in LA, and then gave ourselves the problem of figuring out how do we sell all this product. And lucky for us, peanut butter cups, we had start off with a 12-month shelf life. So we're like, okay, we got like 3-4 months to move 2 pallets worth of product. Had no idea how. And then, quickly through talking to lots of other founders and specifically reading the book Ramping Your Brand, helped us really land on our go-to-market strategy, which started with 5 stores, 5 miles from our house, first 100 customers. And so I remember, nervously taking packs of our peanut butter cups out to local stores in LA, getting the first yes, asking, can I come do a demo? Showed up at the store with the delivery of 4 cases and did a 3-hour demo and sold out. And the guy's like, wow, this is amazing. I was like, can I come back tomorrow? He let me come back like 4 or 5 days in a row. And every time he'd up his order. So 4 cases, 6 cases, bring 8 cases, bring 12 cases. And so, it was really something to stand in a store, having spent like a year and a half building the brand, doing the development work, actually manufacturing a product, and standing in a store terrified, handing these peanut butter cups to customers. Like, are they going to like it? Has everybody just been nice to us? Like, they think it tastes good, or they're just trying to be nice. And so, it's something to confront, to be out there in the world with this product you've made, hand it to strangers, and test, will people exchange their dollar for the product that you've made? And so that was our day one plan and strategy of how to go to market.
Love that so much. The fact that you were like, just boots on the ground, we're going to go and just figure out how to sell through these 2 pallets locally. That is so much better than going into distributor right away, trying to put, like you went the guerrilla marketing approach, which was founders in stores doing product demos, moving it yourself. That's the way. I mean, that's how you build that brand loyalty. And you also get that initial feedback. What does the product need to change like in production run 2, right? Like, are there tweaks we need to make? Is there problems with the packaging, with shelf stability, right? You get to learn all that through that feedback loop that you wouldn't have if you don't start really small like that and you're right in front of the customer every day.
Yeah, I think like, even as we then launched on like Fair and started expanding our distribution footprint, all from a 3PL. I think we went like 21 months before we had any distribution help. And at that point, we were in probably like 500 doors across the US, all specialty independent, fulfilled from a 3PL, direct shipping, chocolate in the summer, which we learned a lot about what we were up against there. And, I've always thought about it like everything in our business, we have to do ourselves before we find a partner to take it over, so that we know what good looks like and can work with that partner, whether it's, actually making the chocolate ourselves on our benchtop, then transitioning it into big contrafiners, or, any of the elements, setting the standard internally, doing it yourself, filling orders on the dining room table, doing customer service. Like, I think every step of the business, being able to, now this isn't the truth, this is just a point of view. For us, was important that we did everything on our own, learned it first before finding a partner. And, I think that set us up to better select partners and then work with those partners to execute the way that we would if we were doing it ourselves. Ultimately, they're an extension of your team and your company.
Absolutely. I had a question about the name WHIMS Delights. Where does that come from? What was the inspiration behind that name?
So, doing something on a whim is an unexpected surprise. And so as we were thinking about building the brand, we thought that it was important that we weren't a better for you confectionery brand. We were a confectionery brand that happened to be better for you. We think that, eating sugar is going to be looked at to, in the future. Eating sugar is going to be thought about like maybe smoking cigarettes is today. And so really standing in the future, what does the future look like? It's not that better for you is niche, it's that better for you is the future. So if it is the future, you have to show up in a way that that represents like that future state. So for us, the unexpected surprise that our product is that if we set you up with it's a low sugar, dairy-free, gluten-free product, people are going to be set up with, oh no, what am I about to eat? And then they taste it, and the unexpected surprise is, well, that actually tastes good. Or the opposite, if you try the product and don't know anything about it, and then flip over the back of the pack, you're surprised to see that it's only got 1 gram of sugar, no added sugar. It's gluten-free, dairy-free. And so that unexpected surprise is, really what a whim is.
Interesting. I love that. I love that the fact that the what the brand stands for is built into the name. Like a lot of times it's not the case. When you explain it, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, sometimes like that whole entire like explanation that you gave makes so much sense, because like when you think about it, or you like, I guess when you think about food in general, like the way that people eat food and consume it, they're like going to go off of taste, and they're going to go off of price, and they're going to expect certain things out of certain products. And I think the better for you industry, or like, I guess you can call it like the natural food industry, like pigeonholes themselves a lot of times into being this like stereotypical, like, oh, it doesn't taste good, oh, it's like complicated, like whatever it is, expensive, when really like a lot of people can make like slight changes over time and slowly evolve into like that future state, like you said. And it is a whim. It's a nice surprise when you taste like a gluten-free pastry and it's incredible. Like there's no reason for, first of all, love to let everyone know, like there's no reason if something is like allergen friendly that it should taste bad. I've had like the most incredible like gluten-free stuff. I've had the most incredible sugar-free stuff. And it just has to be made in a way that like respects the process. And then suddenly you're gonna get things that are amazing. Yeah, I love that. Next question though, and I've been like sitting on this for a minute while you guys are talking. What were you guys doing before? Because like you were in Vancouver and then you moved to California, and like I think everyone out there like knows like it's not easy to do that as an adult. You gotta like pick up, move, get a new place, like it's expensive. Like what were you guys doing before? Did you like wholesale quit your jobs? Like was there a plan? There doesn't have to be a plan. I didn't have a plan. I'm just curious, like what was the thing that led you guys here, other than the fact that like obviously your wife got diagnosed with the autoimmune disease?
Yeah, I spent the first half of my career I was in the people business. So started off doing recruiting, moved into executive search, did, traditional HR work, leadership development, exec coaching. And a lot of my clients were entrepreneurs, founders. And we happened to work, do some work over a 10-year period within CPG companies. And so I had a seat at the table and interviewed, dozens, maybe hundreds of leaders, from all size companies. We worked for small entrepreneurial businesses, sort of sub 10 million, all the way through, supporting Big Ten food, hiring executives. And so really had a peek under the covers at the industry. And what really drew me in was the complexity of the business, having, provided a service for so many years. Supply chain driven just seemed like it offered such an interesting challenge. And my wife's health journey coincided with, the midlife for me, which was, I sort of stood in the question, if I could do anything for the second half of my career, would I keep doing what I was doing? And the answer was no. And then, that left the question, if I could do anything for the second half of my career, what would I do? And ultimately it was, man, I'd love to start a product. Having seen so many folks bring a product into the world was, something that I really wanted to do. And so it was, so I ultimately shut down that business. It and went all in with WHIMS, and we started raising capital right away, and knew part of launching a brand, which, as I talk to so many early stage founders, I think they miss that the responsibility you have is to capitalize the business in a way that allows you to grow. And I think so many people, certainly it was the case for me. Like, I had never raised capital before, and I was terrified about doing it. And I knew that I was going to suck for a while. I knew I had to start, so that I knew if we were going to build a really big business, one of the things that I would need to be excellent at is raising capital, and never having done it before, knowing the only way I'm going to get good at it is if I just keep practicing. And so we started raising right away. And so thought about, bringing in capital to the business. Of course, this was, 2 years ago. So I had it couldn't have been a more challenging environment to raise in. It still hasn't truly opened up to what it was, 4 or 5 years ago. But, for us, it was just listing out all the things that if we're going to really go for this, what are all the things we need to be responsible about? And so it was like, that was part of the mission day one.
That makes so much sense.
Get that
Daniel, you have a question?
Yeah. So, you talked about raising. Tons of founders have, myriad questions about that. Did you guys raise through VC? Did you go angel for that first round? Did you go with a convertible note? Did you go with a safe? Like, what was the structure? What were the terms? Just for my curiosity, I'm always fascinated by that stuff.
Yeah, I quickly learned that VCs wouldn't talk to us. I mean, they all talk to us, but we didn't fit their investment criteria at the time. Kind of 2.5, 3 years ago, the investment criteria was come back when you have $1 million in sales. Today, that's really changed. It's probably more like 2 or 3, with a really good data story, proof, right? I don't envy the world of venture investing. Over the last 7 years, it's a lot of those funds deployed capital into a market that was highly inflated and just irrationally exuberant. And so, I don't envy that world either. And so we quickly learned that we would have to raise from angels until we, we still haven't taken capital from a fund. We're just preparing to go to market for our seed round, but our pre-seed round has been all angels. I didn't quite get the term angel when I first started, but now I understand that they are truly angels who, are early partners, early believers that take a big risk, and they're not, they're not easy to uncover. It's not a straight process. Like, let's line up the 30 funds that invest in early stage consumer, run a process, and find our partner. Angels are, otherwise high net worth individuals out there just living their life. And I'm just trying to think. I'm not sure anybody who has invested does so, on a broad scale. I think that we've gotten really lucky. Like, serendipity's played a big role for us on our journey. I think maybe 5 or 6 or 7 of the folks who wrote checks in our pre-seed round found our product out in the world, emailed in, and were like, who are you guys? What is this product? And are you raising? And so we've had a lot of serendipity on our capital journey. But it's not that was easy. We had to be prepared for when these people showed up with, with a business that appeared investable, that was investable. So, truly focusing on if we're going to raise capital, therefore we have to be an investable business. What does the business need to look like in terms of gross margin, in terms of distribution, in terms of channel mix? Like, thinking ahead of, if we're going to talk to investors, how do we build the business in such a way that is investable, and bakes in excellence early, so that we develop these sort of habits about how we operate the business, so that we can, if people show up and when we find them, that, you know, we built something that's investable. And so our pre-seed round was raised on a safe, you know, relatively low lift in terms of, you know, regulatory and legal. And so, yeah, we've, you know, we've been super fortunate that as we've gone on our journey, the right resources, both human and capital, have sort of shown up to meet us where we needed them.
I think it's so fascinating that you raised off of the product. So, you know, consumers went and found your product, pulled it into, you know, their world, and then they reached out to you. And so in a sense, the product kind of raised for itself, which is really unusual, and, you know, just kind of points to like, make a fantastic product, put it out there in the world, and the rest kind of follows. And a lot of people, I think, put the cart before the horse on that one. You know, they raise a bunch of money, they create an MVP, and then they go and spend a bunch on trade spend. And it's just, you know, they're not doing it correctly. And I think you guys really kind of, you had the insight. You'd been there before, right? You'd seen what other C-suites have done. You kind of had an understanding, at least, of what the path should look like, even if it is non-linear. You know, especially in the beginning, it's extremely tangential, and you found that path. You know, it's nice. I think, as you said, what'd you say? You step into the abyss, and the path makes itself known. You kind of stepped into the abyss, and the path kind of made itself known for you.
It's so clear looking back, but like, you know, and it sounds all neat and tidy today, but right. You know, it is truly like creating order out of the chaos of all the unknown, all the fear, all the uncertainty, and being prepared for when, you know, these moments happen, to be able to capitalize on them.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, creating like, I think a lot of like creating serendipity or your own luck has to do with that. It's like you have the preparedness to do the thing, but then they also, I mean, like what Daniel was saying, like, dude, when you go out with like a good product, like good things just simply happen to you. And a lot of people they just underestimate the importance of like, I've got to like come out with a thing that people actually want to buy. You see it over and over again. I've only been really around CPG for like almost 5 years. And in those 5 years, like you go to a trade show like 5 years ago and you go to one now, there's completely different brands. And a lot of the times it was like, yeah, I tried the product, it was bad. And like, it kind of, we all knew where this was going. Like, I've never seen a brand succeed where it was like, oh, that product's not good. There'll of course be like customers that are like, I don't want it. That's fine. And there's other customers that are like, oh, this is amazing. But like in general, like pretty objectively, you can be like, oh, that tastes good. Or like, you know, that has legs. And like when you go out with a great product, man, like it creates a lot of serendipity. And then when you're prepared, like suddenly luck seems to be happening to you. So yeah, kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
What I guess like what does the journey look like today? Like what are you guys working on now? Like obviously from, you know, those first stores in LA that you were sampling at to today, you guys have grown a lot. What's the future look like for you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, I think that I heard this said early on, is that first-time founders think about product, second-time founders think about distribution. And so, you know, ultimately this is a distribution puzzle to solve, right? The product, you know, having a product is table stakes, and now you've got to figure out, you know, distribution. And so, you know, we didn't have any distribution partners up until Q4 of last year, and today we have 7 or 8. And that's a mix of local DSDs in key markets for us, like the Northeast, NorCal, SoCal, and then we've just gone live with KE and UNFI, so broadliners in key regions with a focus of really proliferating those regions. You know, with density, like the Pac Northwest, unlocked UNFI there with an anchor. And, you know, so there's the one DC in the Pac Northwest with UNFI services 800 doors. And so I think about it like we've got to earn our right to open up the next region by getting as many of those doors as possible. And so with a local regional broker partner, we've got, I think, about 150 doors in that region with lots more ground to cover. And then we unlocked food service, which is we've always thought about like, what are the, hearing all of the stories about the cost of distribution in the natural channel, what are the other channels where our product, given its attributes and category, can we sell into to offset the cost of the natural channel, which is an expensive way to build distribution? And so, right from day one, hotel mini bars was an interesting spot for us to go after. So, today we're in about 40 hotels that we ship directly to through our 3PLs in mini bars. We unlocked food service through Vistar, and are now, offered in businesses and institutions, corporate campuses through them. And so, really for us, it's maintaining a good channel mix of distribution while layering in slowly distribution in the natural channel, really focused over the next 12 to 18 months on broadening our distribution footprint, truly learning what does it look like to win in the natural channel through the broadliners. What is our playbook? What does our trade spend look like? What do our velocities look like? What are our levers? How do we learn in as small region territory set of retailers as possible, so that we then have a blueprint for success that we can then go capitalize against and accelerate. And so it's like slow, steady growth. And I think that for us, in our particular instance, given our complexity of our supply chain, where we manufacture all of our components from scratch in third-party manufacturers, going slow, steady, strategic has allowed us to, in tandem, work on our supply chain while we expand our distribution footprint. Those two are never in lockstep. Today, we're to be totally straight, a little overextended in the distribution side, and have some work to do on our ops side to truly, we're at the tail end now of some important work we've been doing this year to really set ourselves up for the future in our supply chain, in terms of just figuring out how to forecast, demand plan, manage our inventory, produce, have the right mix, the right volume and mix of SKUs in one of our 2 3PLs bi-coastally located to support distribution that's rolling out fast, optimizing our cash conversion cycle. Like that supply chain piece is not to be underestimated. It's a beast to manage, maybe even more so than, building new distribution.
I totally agree with you. And like, I mean, I think anyone that's gone through, what's your guys' shelf life now?
So our bars are 12 months, our cups are 18 months.
Yeah, I mean, even with like 12 and 18 month shelf life, like our cookie dough is like refrigerated 6-month shelf life. My journey with like Unify and KE and like the rest of them, and really the entire supply chain, like end to end, has been like, I guess hard is like an easy word to describe it, but it's like challenging at every end. You either produce too much, or you produce too little, or you predicted which SKUs would go off wrong, or like you went into a new DC and like in order to try to open up the DC, you just weren't moving enough, and like there's going to be some spoils, or like, I've had situations, most frustrating, where a DC is out of product and another DC across the country has product and it's not selling. And I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. It's like one of those situations where you're like, how is this the way things work? But it's nailing that process and like figuring it out that I've seen like the most successful brands always nail it. They always nail it. They know what they're doing. They figured it out. And to your point, like that is what second time founders probably like focus on, like supply chain, distribution, all those pieces, because they know like this is where you make or break it. Like you can always launch product, good product, get distribution, do the thing. And then it's to be seen whether or not your business is actually going to like thrive. So which DCs have been like the best ones for you? Right? It's like which areas of the country? You guys still like very primarily West Coast as far as like places where like the product moves really well?
Our biggest market by footprint of distribution is the Northeast, specifically New York Metro.
Okay.
That was an early market for us. There isn't another geography in the country that has a higher amount of independent specialty grocery. So we built up a route of 180 doors in New York Metro where we were shipping from our 3PL before engaging with a distributor in that region to take over that route and build it out. And so New York Metro continues to be our biggest market by number of doors and volume of sales. I think we just went live with a DSD in NorCal. NorCal also maybe number 2 in the country for us in terms of like independent specialty stores, with a relatively low barrier to entry. You can get on shelf doing a BOGO or a 20% off. And so I think the thing that the interesting thing is all those specialty independent stores, while you'll run deals with the store, that you don't have that same rhythm of on sale, getting a lift. And so I'd say that our DSD business really, it's been interesting because we've not really had the opportunity to do trade spend and our product selling. And so I think that's what we needed in terms of confidence and signal to be able to move into bigger distribution where it would cost more. So that Northeast continues to be a key region for us. And the Pacific Northwest is growing fast. And then, California is probably currently number 2, probably going to slip into number 3 with that Pac Northwest opening up for us.
Are there like specific stores where the product usually does best? Because like it is so unique in the sense that it's candy. So like you really can sell it almost anywhere. Like have there been any like surprises, like places where you were like, I didn't know it would sell there, and now it is?
Yeah, we're for sale in WH Smith in the airports. It's very expensive for those retailers to operate in an airport. And so the cost, the price that we sell at the airports, on one hand, I'm surprised at how well it does. On the other hand, I know, having been trapped in airports, you're just forced to spend more than you would out on the streets. But, pleasant surprise how well it sells in the airports, given the price that we're on shelf there.
You mentioned that at one point we were selling our empanadas in our local airport, and the spread between like what we would sell for on the street and what it would sell for in an airport just blew my mind, and it just consistently sold through. It was incredible.
Yeah, everyone's been captive inside like an airport before. They're like, I really don't want to buy this bottle of water for $6, but here we are. Bottles of water, $6. I guess it's what's happening. That's the way it is. No, that's cool. I mean, I resonate with that. Like there's so many times where you like see product on the shelf and you're like, I can't believe people are buying this, but like means people see value in it, at least enough value to like pick it up, buy it, like, eat it and like it.
I think something about our category, which is interesting, if you think about, there's a couple things that I didn't know when we launched, but I think I learned, as we moved through is, if you think about like true confectionery, there's not been a lot of innovation in our category. When you think about who's on shelf there today, it's 15, 20-year-old innovation. Some of it was launched at a time where natural and organic as call-outs signaled to the consumer that this is better for you. And, with a relatively the same amount of sugar as the traditional products. And so, that natural and organic at one point was considered clean label and better for you. And I think that what's happened over the last 15, 20 years is that consumers have been served truly better for you options in almost every category. I think we showed up into a category at a time where it really lacked innovation. You didn't have people reimagining classic confection. We have a lot of sort of chocolate covered nuts, things like that. And so, I think for us, we got lucky in the sense that we approached a category that truly lacked real better for you innovation. And so I think for us, consumers are willing to, we serve a need. Like almost 50% of America is diabetic or pre-diabetic. Like insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome is the biggest health issue in America. And it's probably the least talked about, but rarely do I meet somebody over the age of 40 who's not managing some sort of a health condition. And so, depending on their level of commitment to solving that issue and taking on the challenges of eating more clean, there we show up in that space where if you are, managing sugar, if you are dealing with, almost 1 in 2 Americans has a dairy sensitivity. And so if you're dealing with dairy, gluten, sugar, in any issue, most of our categories inaccessible.
That's so true, man.
Not only is it inaccessible, but like go out on a Halloween with your kids, grab candy, and you realize like this is the same candy that they were getting like 50 years ago. Like that has not changed whatsoever. So even if it's not like better for you innovation, there's no innovation period.
Yeah.
Like it's the sleepiest category ever, which maybe speaks to the fact like what you're talking about, which is that like people don't want to eat sugar anymore like that. Like I hate eating candy. I feel like shit afterwards.
Yeah.
Whereas like everyone's looking for like new innovation. I think what you guys are doing, what Rotten is doing, honestly, there'll probably be more that like are able to like get out there and do like make an impact. Actually, I think that's going to be big. And with that said, are you guys going to have like a Halloween pack at some point that I can pass out to kids?
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for us at Halloween. Some folks in our category have a have a repackaged sort of Halloween offering. We've got 3 of the top 5 best-selling candy bars in America remade in a better for you format. So I would say definitely a pillow pack is in our future. I think we got to earn our right to get there with a seasonal play. We got a lot of work to do to just focus on our core products, build that distribution footprint, win, accelerate that. But I think it's a no-brainer for us to jump into Halloween.
Yeah, so cool.
So you talk a lot about like distribution because it's been a big part of your journey. Did you guys at all go D2C, website, Amazon, any of that? And is that a mix, or is it any substantial amount of your business right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. D2C is one of the 2 things that changed from the time we started building our business to the time we launched. One was access to capital, and the other was D2C, where Apple and Facebook broke up, and cost of customer acquisition doubled and tripled. And so that's what really drove us to think retail distribution wholesale first, as opposed to let's slam this thing out on D2C. 1, we didn't have access to capital, and 2, I couldn't figure out how to get those unit economics to work. And the other challenge which we encountered later is obviously summer shipping with chocolate. We have to insulate, ice pack, and 2-day ship our product, and it still melts often. And so, D2C, whether it's Amazon, TikTok Shop, or on our website, is always a seasonal play for us. It's October to April. We can't even be FBA between April and October. Amazon won't allow meltable products into their warehouse. So there is, there's an opportunity to think about those channels for us as low margin, they're margin accretive sampling opportunities. So we launched on TikTok Shop in January, performed really well for like 2.5 months, and then summer came and we tried to redo our economics that worked for us so it wouldn't be a huge loss, and couldn't figure out how to do it. So pretty much, shut down all efforts on TikTok Shop. We're out of Amazon warehouses until October 15th. And we've never done any meta advertising. And so the other sort of, I think, thing to consider for us is, I think D2C is very category specific. Chocolate's an impulse purchase. The closer we are to the register, the better our product sells. And so it's hard to generate. TikTok is an impulsivity platform. So is Amazon in some regard. And so those platforms can work for an impulse item. But for the most part, our bread and butter is, proximity to the register, where that, impulsive purchase can happen.
Definitely. I think you hit on something really important there, which is, the unit economics of D2C don't always work. And a lot of times people overspend on ad spend to try to push product through the channel, and they discover that they are unprofitable, and that doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I probably learned that lesson in one of the cheapest ways, and I'm pretty sure we burned like 500 grand. And I've seen other brands like yours, Jesse, and like mine have like meltable product. It's not really supposed to be a D2C product, and like suddenly you're deep in the hole on ads, or deep in the hole on like paying influencers, and you're like, what are we doing? When like this is a channel that doesn't make sense for my product. It might make sense for others.
Yep.
Which, like, I won't like argue the success of like athletic greens.
Yep. Prime Bites is killing it on TikTok, but they're shelf stable, and that's why they can get away with it. Like, it doesn't work if you need to stay refrigerated to some capacity.
Yeah, I think that early on in my journey, I met a founder of a supplement brand. So I totally got, supplements are very sticky and have high repeat purchase and have the ability to build product offerings around a core product. I think this company had grown like $0 to $10 million in 18 months, just crushed it on D2C. But then they realized that they sort of hit a limit in terms of how they could build, and that ultimately the real game to play was wholesale. And so then they had built their business, optimized everything about it for D2C. And then as they approached going retail, they had to reimagine their playbook. It's different packaging. It's you don't have the consumer education moment that D2C allows. And so, like if this company who crushed it on D2C had to reimagine the playbook to go after retail, and ultimately retail is the real big play. I think I heard it said, I can't remember the percentage, but a high percentage of all groceries are purchased in a cart still. So it's like, okay, well, if that's the big game to play, let's just, let's focus. It can all be very distracting and enticing to go grab some quick revenue D2C or through any of those channels. But if ultimately the big game to play is retail, and for us it was like, let's just start there.
Definitely. Yeah, I think if you're going to be a CPG product, especially one that is not a shelf stable product, like, you have to figure out retail at some point. It's going to be the thing that makes or breaks your business. So figure it out early, right? Figure it out as early as you can. You can do D2C with a shelf stable product pretty effectively, but anything that has to be refrigerated to any degree, like, really needs to be in a grocery store.
All right. Well, guys, I think we should wrap it up. My kids just started making noise where I'm recording the podcast, which is cool.
Life is happening.
They were really quiet up until about like 10 minutes ago. Fine.
It's fine.
Jesse, I loved having this conversation.
It was great.
Cool.
Thank you.
And I'm really, really excited to see where you guys are headed, because I think it's going to be a really, really cool place. Can you tell the audience like where to find you guys, how to interact with you on social, where to follow you, and also can you please distribute it from that DC at Unified Town and Country in Bozeman, because then I can buy your products, and they have like 11 stores. And if you don't know the buyer, I'm going to email you and send you his email, because I want to be able to buy it. But yeah, tell everyone where to find you.
Yeah, we are at WHIMS Delights on social, whimsdelights.com online, and we've got a store locator on our website. And I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so you can hit me up there. I always love jamming. Small business owners have always been my heroes. It's a pleasure to, get to share our journey if it can be helpful. And yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse.
Come on, Jesse.
Had a blast.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas.
Take care.